CBS Sports presents the NCAA Basketball Championship Selection Show, sponsored by Pizza Hut, making it great again and again.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien, along with Quinn Buckner and George Raveling. Gentlemen, nice to see you again. And now is the time everybody has been waiting for, the announcement of the NCAA tournament seedings and brackets. Let's go right out to Andrea Joyce in Kansas City. Andrea?
All right, Pat, we're going to get right down to business. First, a look at the #1 seeds in the 4 regions. This is how they will match up in the tournament. East against Southeast, Midwest against West, North Carolina, the top seed in the East, Kansas, the #1 seed in the Southeast. In the Midwest, it's Minnesota, and out West, it'll be Kentucky. Now we begin the brackets in the East. These are Thursday, Saturday games in Winston-Salem. What a turnaround for North Carolina. The Tar Heels climbed out of the ACC cellar to the #1 seed. They will take on the surprising Stags of Fairfield, in with a losing record. How big is this? Classes were canceled on Tuesday after they won the Metro Atlantic tournament. In the 8-9 game, Bob Knight's young Hoosiers of Indiana will take on Colorado. The Buffs back in for the first time since 1969. The #5 seed is California. The Golden Bears traveling across the country to face the dangerous Tigers of Princeton, who come in with a 19-game winning streak. The #4 seed in the East is Villanova. The Wildcats will take on the highest scoring team in the nation, Long Island University. The Blackbirds, led by the nation's leading scorer, Charles Jones. Moving on now to Friday, Sunday games in Pittsburgh. The #6 seed is Louisville. The Cardinals will face Massachusetts. Congratulations to Bruiser Flint, the winningest first-year coach in UMass history. The #3 seed is New Mexico. The Lobos, with an at-large bid from the WAC, they will take on Old Dominion. The #7 seed in the East is Wisconsin. The Badgers lifted themselves off the bubble with a big win yesterday over Minnesota. They will face Texas. The Longhorns squeak in with 16 wins. The #2 seed in the East, South Carolina, one of the surprise teams of the season, up against the champions of the MEAC, the Eagles of Coppin State. Moving on now to the Southeast region. These are Thursday, Saturday games in Memphis, Tennessee. The top seed, Kansas, top-ranked team in the country with the best record in the country of 32-1, and they will face the champions of the SWAC, Jackson State, making their first appearance in school history. The #8 seed is Purdue. The Boilermakers will be up against the Rams of Rhode Island. The #5 seed in the Southeast, Maryland, the Terps, set to meet the College of Charleston, the Cougars with the nation's longest winning streak of 22 games. Arizona is the #4 seed. The Wildcats' high-powered offense will take on Bill Musselman's South Alabama squad. Now, in the Friday-Sunday games in the Southeast, these will be played in Charlotte. The #6 seed is Illinois. Lon Kruger's squad will take on USC. First trips for the Trojans since 1992, when George Raveling was at the helm. The #3 seed is Georgia. The Bulldogs played their way up all the way up to a 3 seed, and they will take on Chattanooga. The Moccasins back in after a 16-year absence. Great week for Marquette. 4 wins in 4 days in the Conference USA tournament. They're the #7 seed in the Southeast, set to take on the Friars of Providence. And the #2 seed in the Southeast, Duke. Duke has the all-time winningest percentage in the NCAA tournament. They will face the Racers of Murray State, the champions of the Ohio Valley Conference. And that's half the field. We will take a short break, and we'll come back with the remaining 32 teams in the field in a moment. Welcome back to Kansas City, everyone. Here are the brackets for the other half of the tournament field in the Midwest. Thursday, Saturday games in Auburn Hills. The #6 seed is Iowa State. The Cyclones will take on Kevin Stallings' young Redbirds of Illinois State. The #3 seed, Cincinnati. The high-scoring Bearcats up against Butler. The Bulldogs ending a 35-year NCAA drought. The #7 seed in the Midwest is Xavier. The Musketeers will face the Commodores of Vanderbilt. The #2 seed, UCLA. The Bruins looking for tournament redemption after getting knocked out in the first round last year by Princeton. They'll take on Charleston Southern. Their first appearance, big day for the smallest school in the field. Friday, Sunday games in Kansas City. The top seed, Minnesota. Congratulations to the Golden Gophers on their first Big Ten title since 1982. They will take on Southwest Texas, the representative from the Southland Conference. Ole Miss is the #8 seed. Their first 20-win season since 1938. The Rebels will take on John Chaney's Temple Owls. The number 5 seed in the Midwest is Tulsa. The Golden Hurricanes set to face Boston University. The Terriers set a school record with 25 wins this season. The number 4 seed in the Midwest, Clemson. The Tigers will take on the representative of the MAC, Miami of Ohio. Moving on now to the West. Thursday, Saturday games in Salt Lake City. The defending champion, Kentucky, the top seed, a record 38th NCAA appearance for the Wildcats. They're set to face the Grizzlies of Montana, the champions of the Big Sky Conference. In the 8-9 game, it's Iowa against Virginia. Coach Tom Davis, 9-0 in first-round games. That's bad news for Jeff Jones' squad. The number 5 seed in the West, Boston College. The Eagles won their first ever Big East tournament title yesterday, and they will meet the Crusaders of Valparaiso. The number 4 seed out West, St. Joseph's. The Hawks are hot. They've won 13 of their last 14. They'll take on the Tigers of Pacific. Friday, Sunday games in Tucson. The number 6 seed is Stanford. The Cardinal will face Oklahoma. The Sooners played their way in with a good showing in the Big 12 tournament this week. The number 3 seed out West, Wake Forest, led by Player of the Year frontrunner Tim Duncan, and they are set to face St. Mary's. They've got a big guy of their own. The Gales, led by the guy they call Big Continent, Brad Millard, 7'3", 345 pounds. And how about this matchup out West? North Carolina Charlotte, the 7 seed, up against John Thompson's Georgetown Hoyas. The number 2 seed out West, Utah. The Utes are on a roll. They've won 11 in a row, 18 of their last 19 games, and they will face the midshipmen of Navy. Congratulations to all the teams who got in. Always never enough spots to go around for everyone. Let's take a look now at some of the teams we called bubble teams all week long. The teams that did not get in, there you see Syracuse, Michigan, West Virginia, Tulane. It's the first time in 15 years that Syracuse and Michigan are both out of the tournament field. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, our panel of experts will have a chance to find out why or why not certain teams are in or out of the tournament. We'll talk with the men's basketball chairman, Terry Holland, when we come back to Kansas City. Back to you guys right now in New York.
All right, Andrea, thank you very much, and our congratulations to all the teams in the tournament. Let's recap the number 1 seeds right now. In the East, it's North Carolina. Dean Smith needs 2 wins to pass Adolph Rupp. Could have come against Bob Knight in the second round. The Southeast has Kansas. Roy Williams still looking for his first national championship there in the Midwest, Minnesota. Big Ten champs for the first time in 15 years. And out West, Kentucky gets sent out West to Salt Lake City. They won their fifth SEC title in 6 years today. The Final Four bracket looks like this. East against the Southeast, Midwest against the West. That's on Saturday, March 29th, in the RCA Dome in Indianapolis for the championship game Monday night, March 31st. Now, let's take a look at the conference breakdown, and let's bring in George Raveling and Quinn Buckner. George?
Well, the ones that jump out at me right away is the Pac-10. The Pac-10 had the 3rd best seeds of all the tournaments behind. The ACC had the best seeds. The SEC was 2nd, and Pac-10 was 3rd. And the WAC probably has to be a little surprised to have 3 20-game winners that didn't get in.
Wait, what about the Big Ten with 6?
Well, Big Ten got 6 in. They've got 6 in last year, and I don't think the committee paid any attention to what has happened in the past. They're taking every team based upon the merit of this year, and it's interesting to see that Wisconsin got even though they're the 4th seed, 4th in the conference, they got the 3rd best seed. That's pretty interesting.
All right, for all the latest information, news, jump on the information superhighway with CBS Sports Online. You'll find breaking news, scores, highlights, and everything you need to know about the tournament at cbs.sportsline.com. Let's fly around the country, show you some reaction as the bids were announced. What a year for St. Joe's. Here's their reaction. The A10 champs, 21-3 in the last 24 years. Coach Martelli's group, first appearance in 11 years, and that was the scene down in Philadelphia. What a job done by Coach Rob Evans in Ole Miss. Here was their reaction when it was announced they're in the tournament. And there they are down in Oxford. First bid since 1981. Congratulations there. Down in Philly, Temple makes his 13th appearance in the last 14 years. And there's their reaction. And joining us live now is a familiar face this time of year, John Chaney. Coach, congratulations. We know you guys work very, very hard with your non-conference schedule. It's a nice reward for you, is it not?
Pat, is just a great opportunity for all of us, and I want to just congratulate our conference for getting so many teams in there. But this is a very special year for our program, with our kids performing the way they did as freshmen, and you know, with me losing Jim Maloney this year and the loss of Ennis Cosby. So I think that our team is just very special this year.
Congratulations, Coach. Wouldn't be a tournament without you, and we'll see you next week. And then Minnesota, what a difference a year makes. Last year, the 65th team. This year, a #1 seed. And there they go. And Clem Haskell, what a job he has done. And he's joining us live now. And Clem, like we said earlier, what a difference a year makes.
What a difference a year makes. We're really excited about being there. It's a great opportunity for Minnesota and our basketball program, and we're just so happy for the players and this great university, and also the conference. The Big Ten got 6 teams out there, so we're really happy about that too.
All right, congratulations. We'll see you next week, and congratulations once again to everybody else. Coming up, we'll talk live with Terry Holland, chair of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee, when we come back in a moment. Welcome back to the Selection Show. Joining us now live from Kansas City is Terry Holland, chair of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee and Virginia Athletic Director, and Billy Packer, also in Kansas City, and Jim Nance, who's down in Miami. Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Pat. Terry, first question. You've been on the committee for a while. How difficult was it this year? What time did you put this to bed, the brackets?
Well, actually, Jim, it was a little bit easier because we didn't have as many upsets. The selection process was, as you can imagine, with the parity in college basketball today was incredibly difficult. But the seeding and bracketing actually gave us a chance to finish up early in the afternoon, and by early I mean like 3:30, 4 o'clock, just in time to have the brackets done in time for CBS to get them.
You know, one thing that jumps out at me as I look at the WAC, got 3 teams into the tournament, but the 3 teams all merited very high seeds, a 2, a 3, and a 5. How did they not get a 4th team into the tournament with 3 of them on the sidelines now with 20 wins?
Well, again, that's always difficult when you've got multiple teams and you're trying to evaluate them. Of course, one of the things they had was Texas Christian going to the finals of that tournament, a team that we really took a good hard look at. But once you evaluated every aspect of it, invariably what you find are the record against the top 100 or the fact that they have too many of their wins against the bottom 150, what we call bottom feeding, doesn't get it done in terms of making the tournament. So, you know, we take a good hard look at them, turn them upside down, and we did that with all the WAC teams just as we did with every team that was under consideration.
Well, my partner's sitting right there in Kansas City. Billy, I know you have a question, too.
Well, Terry, you've been on the other side of the fence, a coach in this thing, an athletic director, and now a guy who headed up the committee. One of the teams that really made incredible strides to me over the course of the latter part of this season is Georgia. They jumped all the way from a 26 in the RPI all the way up to a #3 seed, giving the Eastern Division of the SEC 3 teams in top 3 seeds. How did Georgia advance so rapidly?
And I think that is kind of unusual, Billy. But again, what they did was they beat South Carolina during the regular season, of course, beat South Carolina in the tournament, and that impressed the committee because South Carolina's had a tremendous season, and we started looking at it and said, well, they can't be too far behind if South Carolina's going to be a #2 seed.
One of the things that you look down the brackets, it'll be pretty hard to argue with this thing. It's become so sophisticated. But one of the areas that I know you guys were concerned about is a home court advantage not being available at all, but a home crowd advantage potentially being available. 2 jump out at me. North Carolina and Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where they're going to have a tremendous following, potentially Dean Smith against a Bob Knight for what could be the game that tops Rupp's record, and Duke and Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, that to me would seem to be somewhat of an advantage. There was no way to move those guys out of those areas?
You know, we talked about not actually keeping them from having too great an advantage and then decided, no, our job is to actually put them in as close to as we can without having a home court for them. And that's exactly what we did. We felt that in the case of North Carolina, certainly, if we moved them out of the region, we would be doing it just to move them out of the region, and we didn't think that was a good enough reason.
Quinn?
Quinn Buckner. See, Wisconsin is the 4th team with record in the Big Ten, yet they got the 3rd best seed. Can you help us understand how that comes about?
Well, again, a lot of times it's a team that's playing well at that particular time of the year, as well as their record against the other teams that are being considered, certainly, particularly out of the Big Ten. And that's exactly what we had there. We had a team that performed very well against the upper echelon of the Big Ten.
Terry, George Raveling, since 1982, every Big East team that was eligible and had 18 wins and a winning conference record has received a bid to the tournament. This year, West Virginia was 19-9 and 11-7 in the conference and didn't get a bid. Could you help us understand that?
Well, again, one of the things I think if you look at them pretty consistently across the board, The concentration was record against the top 100 teams and how many of your wins came from outside that, as well as what you do in the last 10 games. In other words, if you were 4-6 in that last 10 games, you probably had to have a very good reason for being 4-6, and the same if you had a losing record against the top 100 or if you had a lot of your wins against the bottom 150. So those were the areas we mainly concentrated on. Certainly took a good hard look at what you did with the conference, out-of-conference schedule. In other words, the schedule that you could actually control yourself.
Terry, along those lines, Syracuse would be another club that you'd have to throw in that mix right there. I look at UMass, Southern Cal, Oklahoma have to be the last three teams to get in. If you look at this on the 11th row right there, could we assume that Syracuse, West Virginia, and potentially Michigan were right in along that line?
Well, you could certainly assume that those teams were among the last to be eliminated. They all are very solid basketball teams, and we never actually get down to voting on one team. That's what most people don't understand. There are usually 8 teams in the mix, and we're cross-country in that mix. That means you're voting them rank order 1 through 8, and then you add up the totals, and the team with the least number of points against it is the one who gets in.
Terry Holland, we look forward to getting the tournament underway on Thursday. Thank you for your time, and we'll continue on the road to the Final Four here on CBS. A second look at the brackets when we continue in just a moment. All right, time, Billy Packer, for a second look at the brackets. 6 teams from the Big Ten, 6 from the ACC heading the class. But let's start out first. Winston-Salem, the site for Thursday and Saturday. And the one that just screams out at you is the Tar Heels and possibly Indiana in that second round going for that record against Rupp. How about that?
Well, Indiana could have their hands full with Colorado, but that would be something. Bob Knight against Dean Smith, and Dean Smith possibly trying to beat Adolph Rupp's all-time record. It'd be an incredible scene.
Surprise you at all that Villanova merited a number 4 seed?
Jimmy, all year long, I never could understand their RPI index, particularly at some of the beatings that they took this year, but we all know it's a club with a lot of potential.
All right, the East region in Pittsburgh, Louisville against UMass, and right you are, Billy. UMass, one of 3 at-larges as an 11 seed to make the tournament. Did you think UMass deserved the spot over, say, Michigan?
Yeah, I really did. I think the way they came on at the end of the year, the tough schedule that they played, that John Calipari left for Bruiser, I think that it was well merited, and I think that New Mexico club is going to be interesting in there as well. Here's the Thursday site in the Saturday site in the Southeast. Kansas, the one second round matchup, it appears, for the Jayhawks against the winner of Purdue, Rhode Island. Kansas was awesome today, and this is a team to beat in this tournament. Cougars of College of Charleston, 22 straight wins. They get into the tournament for the second time again. They have to play an ACC team. Last time it was Wake, this time it's Maryland, a hot ball club. Now, Charlotte's the site for Friday and Sunday action in the Southeast, and Georgia, Billy, being a number 3 seed. I could tell that caught you a little off guard, perhaps. Yeah, that one really jumped out at me, Jim. I thought that was a little high for Georgia. I really did. Also, let's move on now to the next bracket in the Midwest. Thursday action, Iowa State against Illinois State, Cincinnati against Butler, and I think that the Bearcats have maybe underperformed. Well, they have underperformed all season long, but I think this is a team to watch in the tournament, Billy. It is, as is Iowa State, Jim. They played Kansas in the semifinals of the Big 12. It's a very good basketball team, very experienced, explosive outside shooting. And UCLA moved out of the West, sent to the Midwest. Kansas City, Midwest action. Minnesota being the number 1 seed in that region. Mississippi and Temple, what an 8-9 game that is, Billy. Excellent basketball game, and of course you see a team like Clemson ends up with a 4 earlier in the year. Everybody started talking to them about a 2, so that's a team that has to regroup. All right, Billy, let's head to the west. Salt Lake City, Kentucky travels out of the Southeast and heads west. What did you think of that? Well, you can tell that the big movement was when they moved Kansas away, but Kentucky is playing extremely well. And how about an 8-9 game Iowa-Virginia? I mean, the balance in the country is amazing. And finally, the 8th site, that's Tucson, Friday and Sunday. Wake Forest drops to a number 3 seed. 3 weeks ago, Billy, we were talking about the Demon Deacons being a number 1 seed in this tournament. What about their case for the tournament? Well, they really have struggled, particularly with their backcourt in recent weeks, and Dave Odom is going to have to get them back together. An interesting matchup in that 7-10 UNC Charlotte that has really played well in Conference USA against a Georgetown team that came on very strong at the end of the year. And Utah, the 2 in the West. All right, Billy, I'll see you on the road here next week.
Right now, let's send it back to the gang in New York. Pat?
All right, Jim, thank you. Billy, thank you. See you next week. Also, what glares out at you is that Syracuse and Mississippi State, 2 Final Four teams last year, not in this year's tournament at all. George, you've been taking a closer look at Minnesota.
I think Minnesota's got a tough road to get to the Sweet 16. They play 2 slow-down teams. Temple's tough on teams out of conference with that zone.
QB, you've got bad news already, right? Potential upsets?
Yeah, I think there's some games you got to watch out for. South Alabama, Arizona is one that's going to be interesting. And I think Maryland and the College of Charleston is also a game that could prove to be a little more difficult for Maryland than they would like. The ODU game is also, they play New Mexico. Even though New Mexico got that number 3, I think ODU, Old Dominion, is a team you have to be careful of.
Quickly, your biggest surprise?
I would say my biggest surprise is Georgia getting a 3 seed.
And yours, QB?
Mine is UCLA getting a 2. I didn't think they were ready for that.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. The descent into madness begins this Thursday and Friday with the NCAA tournament first-round action beginning at noon. Tip-offs are at 12:15, and then our primetime coverage starts at 7:30 Eastern right here on the exclusive home of the NCAA tournament, CBS Sports. We thank you for watching. Good luck on your brackets. Good night, everybody.